I think we all agree we need to simplify the tax code and make it more economically efficient. But I always think that before we go about the task of comprehensive tax reform, we need to agree what is the end goals that we're trying to achieve so that we can direct our focus. And I mean, I know that some of my friends here argue that we should focus solely on corporate tax reform and profits and stock market gains. And I think I've heard you both say that you really need to do it all at the end of the day in order to make it effective. Senator Bradley, do you believe it's enough for tax reform to be focused on increasing GDP, on the stock market, on corporate profits, or should we also have the goal of ensuring economic growth as part of it, particularly as it's felt by as many Americans as possible? Is that the type of goal we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, you want the economy to grow, and you want everybody to benefit from that. And when we did this bill, as I said earlier, we had 4 principles. These are the things you should consider. That the markets are more efficient allocator resources than we are. The Ways and Means Committee of Finance is figuring out we ought to do this activity or that activity. Second, equal incomes should pay equal tax. It's not fair to have your neighbor pay less because they have a particular tax benefit. And third, those who have more should pay more, the progressive principle. And fourth, if you can simplify it, please simplify it. To me, those are the 4 principles. The economic issues, economic growth, obviously progressivity would say you'd want people to move up. And you'd want to say to people at the top, you have to pay a little bit more. So I think those are the principles that I would use going forward.
You know, I think that it's, you know, my question suggests, at least I view it, that it's not an either-or proposition. In fact, fairness and equity in the code actually help reduce the burden on low and middle class working families is not only morally desirable, but economically good policy, because about 2/3 of our economy is fueled by consumer spending, and certainly low and middle income class families have a higher percentage of their income that they need and spend on goods and services. In that respect, I think that it makes eminent sense to be looking at how we deal, how the consequences of reform deal with them, not just on the corporate taxes as well, because I think it will fuel spending that will help, you know, private sector profits. Senator Packwood, at the end of your testimony, you included a statistic that in 1983, at least 1,900 people who earned $1 million or more paid no federal tax. And that fact was due to a myriad of special interest loopholes that were clogging the arteries of the tax code before '86. And as you noted in your testimony, the product that passed the Finance Committee 20-0 and would later become law raised the taxes significantly on corporations and rich individuals. They would pay more, middle income and the poor would pay less. So we've had now a situation in which the average New Jersey family that makes $65,000 per year pays a higher rate than the wealthiest 400 Americans that make an average of about $270 million per year. So from your experience, what impact does inequity have on the public's perception of the tax code fairness? And would you agree that a focus of reform should be to eliminate the loopholes and preferential rates that have allowed the wealthiest to steadily reduce their effective tax rate over the past 30 years?
There's no question that the public is aware of the inequality. As I say, in 1986 they weren't, and the issue was fairness. How do these people avoid paying any tax at all? Or how do major corporations that are making profits in the defense industry get money back? And that just irritated everybody, and that was a driving goal for us. Inequality today is obviously a much higher goal, preference, issue than it was 30 years ago. What I'm hesitant about is not do you want to fix that. The longer I've been in life and been longer in the Senate, the less confident I was that what we were going to do would necessarily get us to what we wanted. And that's why I agree with Bill. The market is a better allocation. If you want to somehow undo the inequality, I think that is legislatively doable. If you can get both sides to agree on that, that is perfect. But it wasn't what drove us in 1986.
Mm-hmm. And
Thank you.
I might say that,
I'm sorry, Bill.
in terms of the middle class, I mean, we need good-paying jobs, more good-paying jobs. And so that's tough to get at through the tax code, but not impossible. So I'll share with you one of my hobby horses. Infrastructure investment, desperately needed. Tough budget, you can't do it, and the size that we'd like to do it. But there are people that have money. Chinese, Singaporeans, Koreans, in the Persian Gulf, large sovereign funds. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And they have to decide what do they do with that money. And I ask any number of them, why don't you invest in infrastructure in the United States? In other words, they play the role the British played in the 19th century. And they say, well, there's this one provision in the tax code.
892.
And the provision of the tax code is section 892.
Yeah.
And that says that if you're a foreign government and you invest in stocks or bonds, you don't pay tax on that. Very simple, extend that to infrastructure. And you could very well find a significant amount of money for infrastructure coming from sovereign funds.
Thank you.